Good day and welcome back to Mana Ministries, where we let the Bible interpret the Bible. So previously we looked at Daniel 6 and how these principalities symbolized by the lions could not overpower Daniel. In fact, it says that their mouths were locked up. They could not harm or speak anything against this man Daniel. Why? Because he was found faithful in the eyes of God. So this week we're going to look at Daniel 7. So this is where everything starts happening in the book of Daniel, because this is his vision that God shows him. And it's also concerning the principalities. Everything about Daniel is for us to see what the kingdom is and who these principalities are that was in control of these kingdoms and how we are supposed to take in this kingdom. But we cannot take in this kingdom if we do not know these principalities. Unfortunately, the book of Daniel, especially chapter 7, is full of symbolism. So, the best way to approach this would be to do a verse by verse of chapter 7 and chapter 8. So we're going to start off with chapter 7, verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. So we need to understand here that these four spirits speak of four spiritual powers, four angels. And the sea speaks of the earth. It speaks of the peoples of the earth, especially paganism, especially people that are not of faith. Right through the word from Genesis up to Revelation, there's especially in the book of Revelation, we can clearly see that those that are on the earth, meaning the ground, the Hebrew word for that is eretz, speaks of those that are of faith, whereas the sea speaks of the great multitude, nations, people put together, but especially pagan people, people that are not of faith in our God. Verse 3. Four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagles off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given unto it. All right, so this is the same principality that we heard of in the dream of Nebuchadnezzar. This is the very head of gold, principality that we hear of in the book of Daniel, especially in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. This is the principality called the Assyrian. Remember, it was the Assyrian principality that set up the kingdom of Babylon for the Chaldeans. He built that city. That's why he is the first principality, or he is that head of gold. But it says here that he's likened unto a lion. Now you'll remember in the previous chapter we learned that these lions symbolize the principalities. Now we know that the lion sort of is the top, the apex predator, meaning he is the highest. He's the king of the jungle. He's the highest principality. And this Assyrian, this principality of Babylon, was the highest of principalities at that time. But it says here it actually had the wings of eagles. Now remember, if a lion is the king on the ground, then the eagle is the king in the air, because no other bird can fly as high as an eagle. So, this principality, this head of gold, this lion with eagle's wings is the highest of principalities. It's the highest on the earth, and it's also the highest in the air. But it says that its wings were plucked off. So its position in the heavens was taken away. And it says that it received the heart of a man, and it had to walk like a man. So in other words, he didn't lose his authority here on earth, though. In the earth, he still had authority, but he lost his access or his way up to heaven. This is what happened here. All right. This speaks of that principality, the Assyrian, when he was chopped down. Remember the tree that was chopped down that we read about in the book of Ezekiel, that we spoke about previously? This is speaking of that time when he was chopped down. He was made to be a man, and he had to be and live as a man. He received the heart of a man. It says he was put in the pit amongst men. And we know that here where we are, David equates this as the pit. He says, I was wonderfully and fearfully made in the pit. Um, so, uh, from the angel's point of view, this where we are is the pit. And this principality was chopped down. That tree was chopped down. That head of gold, that lion, that eagle with eagle's wings lost his ability to have the eagle wings. He could not have the access into the heavens that he had before because he was chopped down. So it's important to see this and how it relates to Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Now, if you want to think of it like this, Nebuchadnezzar's dream gives us the outline of the different kingdoms and principalities. Then in Daniel 7, we get more detail of those principalities. There's more um, identifying marks put on so that we can see what the head of gold is and what the chest and arms of silver is and what the belly and thighs of bronze are. So we're going to get a whole bunch of detail concerning all those different kingdoms and principalities. And then in Daniel 8 and 9, we're going to get even more. So that when we look back in hindsight, we can clearly see who these people, who these principalities are, and how these kingdoms work, so that we can take in the kingdom, so that we can defeat the enemy. Right, so we're going to go on with verse 5. And suddenly another beast, second, like a bear, it was raised on one side, and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to us, Arise, devour much flesh. So this is the second principality that arose after the head of gold. So this speaks of Persia. This is why it was raised up on one side. Remember, the Persian Empire was a combination of 2 principalities, meaning the Persian principality and the Median principality. The Persians were stronger than the Medians, that's why it was raised on one side. But it was 2 principalities that came together, forming a conglomeration, that being the Medo-Persian Empire. And that is what it speaks of. This is also in the statue, the chest and arms of silver. Verse 6. After this I looked, and there was another, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So this is the third beast, and this equates to the belly and thighs of bronze. So this speaks of Greece. And you can see here what's happening. The head of gold was 1 principality. The chest and arms of silver were 2. But in Greece, there were 4 principalities, 4 that pulled together. Now, we know the story well. Alexander was the first great king, and that symbolizes 1 principality. But when he died, his kingdom was split into 4, and the kingdom was given to his 4 generals, which symbolized that there were 4 principalities. And they went on and they sort of ruled the whole earth. And they had a very strong kingdom. And then eventually out of them, the Roman Empire would be born as well, having 10 principalities. And we can see that now in the book of Daniel. So, verse 7. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, the 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth, and it was devouring and breaking in pieces and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the other beasts who were before it. It had 10 horns. So whenever the Bible speaks of a horn, it speaks of power. Now we can see the progression. Remember, Satan's kingdom was chopped up in the plain of Shinar at the Tower of Babel, and he had no more kingdom. But slowly but surely he's pulling his kingdom back together. First it was the head of gold. Then it was 2 people, in the silver, meaning the Persian Empire. Then it was 4 in the Grecian Empire, the Bronze Empire. Now it's 10 principalities, 10 nations, 10 powers pulling together in the Roman Empire. And it's a terrible beast, it destroys everything and it incorporates everything. See how that kingdom is being restored. And it's almost restored. It's almost It's as if Satan is pulling his kingdom back together again, having the 10 principalities that rule that. Now, later on in the book of Daniel and also in the book of Revelation, we hear that, each of these principalities give their power willingly to the dragon, being Satan. So this is definitely speaking of a conglomeration of these principalities that Satan is pulling back together again. Verse 8, I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great and pompous words. So we're going to stop there for this week, and next week we're going to learn more about this little horn that rises up. So this little horn has had so many names over the past, in the past, ranging from the Antichrist to many other things. But we're going to look at the truth of the matter and see who this little horn is, and we're going to look at it in detail. Till next time, God bless.
Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button. Let us take you deeper into the revelations of God. Keep on watching.